Okay, so we are now recording the meeting, so hopefully that's all fine and you can hear me okay. So welcome to the session on working with children and young people as part of this the Beyond Beckett week, a week of sessions available during the week and also obviously in the future to review back the recordings. My name is Robin, so I'm a member of the careers team here at Leeds Beckett. At the very end of the session, I'll give an overview or a reminder about how we are here to support students at any stage throughout their time at Leeds Beckett and also up to 5 years after you graduate, and a reminder about how you can access all that support and everything else whilst you're here. But for now, a bit of a focus on working with children and young people, starting off with just a few kind of slides, a few things I wanted to chat through about that. For the two of you who are live on this at the moment, I mentioned a bit of housekeeping. I think I've already covered on those kind of things. Obviously, recording it. Please mute your microphone. Rob, you might want to turn off your video. It's up to you. But in case you don't want to kind of people in the future to watching back to be seeing what you're doing, or you feel free to turn off your video if you want to kind of stay a little bit more kind of anonymous throughout. There we go. And any questions as we go, put them in the chat function. And obviously for people watching back afterwards, then hopefully the session itself will be of use. So what is this session going to cover? Firstly, the session is not about routes into teaching. Hopefully that's obvious, but occasionally when people think about working with children and young people, the default assumption is, oh, well, that's teaching, and teaching is a bit of a mystery, so I better do something to demystify those routes. We are going to mention teaching in passing, but the focus of this is almost on those careers that might be available to you if you don't want to go into teaching. And often that's a bit of an unclear area for some people. They recognise teaching has been a key career area for working with children and young people, but are wondering if there are other routes out there available to them. What this session is also not going to be is a list of every single job available to you in this area. And I hope that doesn't seem a bit disappointing. The reason why I say that is that when you're offering any kind of careers advice or working as a careers professional and running this kind of session, we're not aiming to be the Wikipedia of careers. The aim here is not to give you simply a list of things which you scroll through, choose the one that sticks out most in your head and think, right, maybe that's the one for me. Partly because that would almost be impossible. It would be impossible to list every single job, and job titles and job functions change over time. But also because what we're trying to get you to do is perhaps think a little bit more about what or how you understand to explore. How you can explore the careers available to you. So how can you go about starting to research and explore and investigate what things might interest you and what is of value to you, and aligned with obviously what is going to be out there at the same time. So hopefully by the end of the session, you will have a reasonable idea of some of the career areas you could explore, and potentially a bit of a different perspective on how to consider what you want to do. As I say, I'm trying to get us to move away from where's the list of jobs that I can choose to apply for, and where is actually more kind of where do I go about kind of exploring my career a little bit further. So moving on. Firstly, I put this slide in here often because particularly anyone who is studying a course focused on children and young people, whether that's some in the Health and Community Studies school that we have here, so the Children and Young People and Families courses, or Education or Childhood Studies, sometimes it can feel a bit strange to not want to be a teacher. We see a lot of students who come and say, a lot of people in my course want to be a teacher. Some of the academic staff and lecturers are chatting about reaching to teaching. Is there something wrong with me? Have I made the wrong choice if I don't want to be a teacher? It's fine. And you don't need to be sorry about that or apologetic about that in any way. It simply means that's not the right thing for you. And part of career planning and career thinking is recognizing what you don't want to do as well as what you do want to do. So just wanted to throw that in there as a bit of a starting point. But presumably you're logged into the session, or you're watching the recording back because you want to work with children and young people, but maybe aren't quite sure exactly what that is. So my first question to you is, if that's the question in your head, I want to work with children and young people, perhaps what can I do? Is to say, well, what do you actually mean by that? And I want to try and unpick that a little bit further before we go any further onto the presentation. So when you want to work with children and young people, do you have an idea of what age group you want to be? I mean, children and young people is 0 to 16 really, and sometimes people include kind of older than that as well. But clearly working with newborn babies is somewhat different as a career and a job area to 16-year-olds and everything else in the middle. So do you have an age in mind or an age range? I don't mean to say you have to pinpoint, only 3-year-old children or only 11-year-olds, but is it the younger early years? Is it teenage? Is it kind of in different levels of education? Is it children that you want to work with, or actually is it parents? Or is it families or carers, and so therefore children and parents all combined? Saying is it parents might seem a bit strange, but often if you're working, say, in some of the very young areas, so for example, midwives and health visitors is often considered a career working with children and young people. Realistically, particularly for midwives, that's more working with the parents than it is with young people. And similarly, in some areas of social work and youth work, working with parents and families is as important as it is as working with the young people. Do you have a thought about whether you want to be in an educational context, so perhaps in schools or some kind of education, but not standard classroom teaching? Are you more interested in the kind of the pastoral social care side of things, so social work, youth work, community support? Is it the healthcare? So do you want to be a children's nurse or mental health nurse, or do you want to be a doctor or psychologist? Again, not saying you have to decide that immediately, but trying to understand the different ways you can think about working with children and young people is important. Another way to think about it is, are you interested in one-to-one work? So do you want to be having sort of direct client-focused or child-focused work? As you perhaps would do, let's say, as a psychologist or psychiatrist? Is it actually about group work? Does that interest you? So, educational type things, but maybe not in a school, or working in a children's centre, or working in kind of play work or that kind of thing. Do you want to work directly with children, i.e., your day-to-day job all day long, being involved working with young people? Or actually, I do like the idea of being involved in an organisation which is about supporting young people, but actually you're more interested in being a bit more behind the scenes or kind of working on behalf of young people. So advocacy work, for example, sometimes can be around that. Is there a particular setting you have in mind? So yes, I want to be in a school, but not a teacher. Or yes, I want to work in the charity sector. Or do I want to be more visiting people's homes or on that kind of thing? So trying to get people to think about the different ways in which you can work with children and young people is perhaps a good first point in that, exploring what things might be available to you out there. What I want to do now is just try to get you to do a bit of thinking rather than just spending this entire session listening to me. And I'm going to put a few scenarios on the screen that I want you just to spend a couple of minutes thinking about. And thinking, well, actually, what career professionals or what professionals might actually be supporting these individuals. I'll put them up on the screen so you can understand what I mean a little bit more. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time about this because I think if you're watching it back afterwards, or even if those of you guys who are seeing it live, you can watch the recording, perhaps pause at this stage and give it a bit of thought. But again, thinking about the child or the young person at the centre of what you might do. Here's some examples of young people who are in a situation, in a scenario, and need some support from professionals who are there to support children and young people. And I think this can be another helpful way to think about career paths. What kind of situation do you want to be helping out with? What kind of young people do you want to be working with? So is it somebody like Emily who has a disability, needs support from someone who understands her needs and can help her family education? Sam has a long-term illness, needs he can spend periods of time in hospital. Jamie with ADHD and has had some problems with the police, or Kelly who has some family problems as well. So there's some scenarios, people individuals who need some support from professionals. And my question is, what professionals do we think might be there to support those individuals? Now, if they are doing this as a live session in a lecture theatre in another time without kind of coronavirus as a factor, I would be pausing for a few minutes now for you guys to do some thinking. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to press straight ahead and start to throw up some possible comments around this. But feel free, if you want to play the game a little bit, then pause the video now, maybe make some notes on as to what areas of professionals you think might be there to support those people, and then play from there. But starting with Emily, who has a disability and needs some support, just as an example, a few career paths there where someone who is in that situation may well be supporting her. So she might need occupational therapy or physiotherapist if it's a physical disability. It could be speech and language therapy, maybe SEN teaching. There could be charities out there to support her. With Sam, depending on what age he is, it could be a paediatric nurse. He well could be needing a hospital play specialist or an art therapist. You even have hospitals who employ teaching staff. Now, I know I said we weren't going to be focusing on teaching, but maybe that's a little bit different to classroom teaching, if you're supporting people within a hospital environment and teaching. Jamie, clearly having a challenging situation. It may well be that the police, obviously, who are there both to deal with the situation in terms of theft, but also to support, and youth offending team may well be there as well. Now, police and also youth offending are a little bit more around kind of responding to whatever they are doing, but charity support may be there to help them through these things. Now, this is not an exhaustive list. I know I'm not talked about SEN teacher there, for example, or a lot of the other more specific things that can support Jamie. I'm trying to get you to think about the different kind of things that might be out there. And finally, some thoughts around Kelly. It's reasonably likely that she'll need some mental health services support. She will probably have a secondary school teacher, may well be either having or could do with a counsellor to support her, particularly around the bullying and the self-harming, or a youth worker and that kind of thing. So maybe that's helping you think a little bit around, well, I have either had personal experience or I'm aware of young people who go through different situations in life, and I want to be helping them with those kind of situations. So again, a way of thinking about career paths that may be out there. I want to get you to think about a child-centered approach around this. Putting the child or the young person at the heart of what your career might be, and therefore what careers or professions may be there supporting those children. I'm now going to move on to a slightly different way of kind of, if like, presenting or thinking about this, to try and get you to think about things again in a slightly different kind of way. And what I've done is I've started to map out, and this is again not an exhaustive list, but looking at different ages of young people, some of the professions who may well be there supporting children at that age. So we're starting off with a very newborn baby. Clearly at that stage, midwives, possibly doulas, neonatal nurses, maybe a doctor might be involved in this kind of area. And as they start to get a little bit older, then things like the health visitors, childminders and nursery practitioners could be there as well. But I've also, on most of this and the next few slides coming up, I've tried to throw in a few things which might seem a little bit more distant, maybe aren't the first things that come to mind. So I put in there, for example, a baby photographer. Now that might seem a bit of an odd thing to throw in, but what my point behind that is to say, you might have a passion, you might have a hobby, you might have something which you want to pursue, and might want to link that with a desire to supporting young people. So I'm not trying to kind of draw a direct comparison between, let's say, a midwife and a baby photographer, or saying they are similar careers. I'm simply saying try and think as widely as possible, as broadly as possible, about the different careers that may be available to you that fit around those young people. So if I move on to, this is a stock image of, I think, a 2-year-old. Clearly, some of those things are still there. So the nursery staff or childminding staff and health visitors might be there. But maybe things like play therapy could be more relevant, more charity work in that kind of age, social working or youth working even could be there, play groups. I put on there playground designer. I think we've got somebody on the live call who's a graphic design. I've worked with students in the past who was a product design student who went on to work for a company whose specialism was designing playgrounds for young people. Again, if you had to list the most common or the most known about 10 careers working with children and young people, I'm pretty sure that playground designer, or on the previous slide, baby photographer, would not be on those lists. But that doesn't mean we can't think about those as potential options that might be available to you. Moving on again, a bit of a stock image. This is a clip art one of a sort of 11 or 12-year-old, and it becomes a little bit easier to start to populate a range of professions that could be related there. Now, this is a very busy slide. I'm not going to talk through every single one of these. Again, if you're watching this back as a recording, then you're welcome to obviously to pause at this point in time, and those of you guys who are watching it live, obviously the recording will be available to you as well, and I'll try and make the slides available. But think about some of those broader careers. If you're talking about a 12, 13-year-old child, secondary teaching obviously is going to be there, but beyond that, a huge range of kind of things that may well be relevant. And my slightly kind of less expected thing there, I think, is the child hairdresser. Again, just thinking about a little bit kind of different kind of things, but outdoor education, sports, performing arts professionals, arts education officers. if you are a parent with with young children, age kind of 2 or 3 plus, you quickly become aware there's a huge range of different things out there that your children can engage with. Sports, arts, learning, libraries, all kind of things where are ways of helping the development and the play and the growth of the young people. And the kind of the management, if you like, looking after them. And in all those areas, there are professions that do that, as well as those that are perhaps there for more kind of medical or health or educational purposes. We move on one more. I think this is the last one of these. So as for a teenager or late teenager, again, some similar things there. We're still just about in secondary teaching category, but other areas that may become more relevant here. So we could be into youth offending category or youth justice. Still there with things like outdoor education and sports coach. I couldn't miss the opportunity to throw a careers advisor in there. So people doing my kind of job, but working in schools with younger people. Again, we've got something a little bit different. So on the left-hand side, education publisher. So people who will potentially write as well as an author, but people who publish books for young people, whether that's kind of fictional novels, whether that's educational text and that kind of thing. So that's been a few slides where I've got probably as close as I'm happy to get to listing lots of different job titles, but trying to get you to think a little bit around different career paths that could be available to you and how that might change and evolve depending on the age of child that you might want to work with. So having done that, and having perhaps got you to think a little about the kind of ways you want to work with young people, maybe a natural question to that might be, or what are your next steps going to be? And where do you take things from there? My recommendation is always that you make a bit of an action plan. So whether you are watching this as a first year student who has no clue what they want to do, or whether you are a finalist who's got some quite specific ideas, whether you're studying something related to children and young people, or whether something completely different, that doesn't matter. It's about saying, where are you and where do you want to get to? So if you know what you want to do or have a fairly good idea what you want to do, well, then how do you narrow that down? And then how do you start to look and search for jobs and opportunities in that area? If you've got no ideas, what might you want to do to help you start to kind of understand your options and research what might be the right thing for you? So my two key messages around that are to do some reflection. If you've got a lovely pier to sit on over a lake with a nice dog, then that's very good for you. But spend some time just to reflect and think about what's important to you. When you have this vague idea in your head, I want to work with children and young people, what do you really mean by that? Try and unpin that a little bit. Try and unpick it in terms of, are you motivated by personal experiences, by your own upbringing, or there's a family? Do you have an idea about what you really mean by working with young people? And then follow that up by doing some research. There's a huge amount of information online, of course, about careers. I've got some links to some useful resources coming up in the next few slides about good places to research jobs, research careers, read about things that you can go on and do, but also speak to people. If you know anybody, if you can find people via, say, LinkedIn or any other kind of network, people who are working in different professions, that's hugely valuable. Throughout the academic year here, we run all kinds of sessions and we'll have ways to engage with professionals from different kind of backgrounds, including working with children and young people. So there'll be things, again, I normally say on campus, they're probably going to be online for the foreseeable future, but ways to network with professionals in different areas. But try and get yourself out there, try and meet, speak to, understand from people what it's really like. It's far better to hear from somebody working in a youth offending team what it's like to do that than hearing me as a careers advisor give you a 2-minute summary of what it might be like. A middle ground is reading and watching some videos and that kind of thing. But doing that research will help. It's hard work, but it's worth the investment in time. Now, gaining experience and finding jobs, it's a funny time to be talking about that, obviously with everything else that's going on. It's hard to give a specific around, how this is affected by coronavirus. Clearly, things are hugely different, but things will be different next week or next month from how they are now. Generally speaking, looking through charities, looking through local authorities, looking through some of the volunteering websites are good ways to find out about volunteering opportunities. Now, they may be online rather than face-to-face. That's an ever-evolving thing. What I would say is, and it goes for this career path or anything out there, you need to try and find ways to gain experience in this kind of area if you want to have a career in this path. So if you want to work with children and young people in whatever setting it's going to be, then you need some experience of doing that. Now, that may come through part-time work. It's probably more likely to come through volunteering. So maybe face-to-face in coming months. For now, there may well be online kind of things. But exploring those opportunities to kind of gain your knowledge, to gain your experience is worthwhile doing. There's a few places there of where you can find and look for jobs. Again, I've already kind of highlighted the fact that you can work in a huge range of different kind of settings. So is it in education and school? Is it a health context? Is it in charities? Is it museums? Is it something a little bit different? Again, researching those jobs that interest you will help you understand where the employers are in that kind of area. But I do have a handout I'm going to link to in a moment where that will be a useful, a good way to find out more information. Now, if you're watching this solely as a video, then those links won't work, but hopefully you'll be able to access those. I'm going to share the PowerPoint if I can afterwards. But just to explain what they are, the first is actually a handout that we have on My Hub, so the system where all career support is available. It's actually described when you click on the link for people. It says it's for people studying childhood studies. That's a little bit of a poor way of describing it, really. It's more about if you want to work with young people. If you want to access that and you can't get that link to work, go onto My Hub, so the careers part of My Hub, the link there at the bottom, the careers homepage. Click on the careers, then on the top you'll see a career choices tab. Click on that and you'll see something which says course specific options or handouts. Search for children or childhood and you'll see that one coming up. It's got links to careers information, professional body websites, job websites, and that kind of thing. So there's a huge amount of stuff on there. Education alternatives, the best thing to is to Google the phrase education alternatives and you'll see, and actually put in 2019, that's the most recent publication of that. It's something which comes out every single year. It's quite a lengthy document. Last time I saw it was about 90 odd pages, so I'm not recommending that you read all of that, but it's produced by actually one of the careers professional bodies, and it gives you information about different career paths in education outside of teaching. The National Career Service, which is a organisation to give career support to everyone in the UK at any stage, at any age, has got some really good pages on careers in teaching and education. If you just Google National Career Service Teaching and Education, that should come up. The next couple of links, career planning, again, that's from My Hub. So go on to My Hub, the careers page, career choices and career planning, and you'll find it there. And then the careers homepage. All of this stuff that we do as a career service, whether it's events, resources, job advertising, appointments, they're all advertised via My Hub, and that's the place to go for any further information you want. So that's kind of coming to the end of my chat around careers with working with children and young people. I hope that's given a bit of food for thought in terms of how you might go start to look into different careers and explore different areas there. The last few slides are just a little bit around where you go from here. I've already talked about your own personal action plan, but remember that this is part of a week long of sessions that are both live or available to watch back afterwards. So I'm speaking to this on Monday afternoon. There's one immediately after this, but the next things maybe more relevant for you are thinking about further study options tomorrow, LinkedIn, your degree doesn't define you, that kind of thing. I should mention that quite a few of the careers working with children and young people do require further study. Youth work, social work, any of the medical health areas, teaching. A lot of those are career paths that require a master's course of some sort. Not all, but just bear in mind that some of those routes do require further study and feel about whether you are happy to go down that route or not. Further on in the week, Wednesday is about career clarity. So how do you start to make some decisions? Where do you look for jobs and understand the graduate job market? That's quite broad rather than industry specific, but some useful things there. And on Thursday, how do you actually be an effective applicant? So sessions on CV writing, application writing, performing well at interview or assessment centre, that kind of thing. And on Friday, we're running drop-ins and there's going to be appointments available throughout the day if you want to have that individual chat with somebody. And again, that's going to be replicated across the rest of the summer. There are appointments, telephone appointments available most days of the week, every week, all bookable via My Hub. We're trying to encourage some individual calls to action for each day of the week this week, if you can. So the one for today is to take what we call Career Pulse. It's a short kind of 10-minute process to do. It's a set of I say a survey, a set of questions where you ask to rate yourself from 1 to 10 about how confident you feel about different aspects of your career planning. If you do that, you immediately get an email and some tailored responses about where you might find useful resources and next steps. It's nothing that we are assessing. It's not something you have to submit. It's nothing to do with your course. It's simply a useful self-assessment tool to have a look at where you might want to, where you want to go next, more generally from a careers point of view. The link's there on the bottom, or you can go to MyHub Careers Career Planning, and you'll see it on there as well. And finally, a bit of a broader reminder about all the help and support that's available from the careers team. So as I say, we're here for students at any stage of their time whilst at university, and for up to 5 years after you graduate, our support's available. Anything you can get as a current student, you can get as a graduate. That's all of our online information via MyHub. The job vacancy listing, help with supporting with further study, so applications, personal statements, applications, CVs, interviews, all those kind of things, improving your LinkedIn profile. There's always workshops and events going on throughout the academic year. Obviously, next semester, so semester 1 2020, will be heavily online. Who knows if there'll be anything face-to-face. Even the big careers fairs, we're going to be moving online and having ways to engage with employers that way. Appointments, one-to-one meetings are currently by telephone. Obviously, when we can go back to face-to-face, they will be, and that's all available via MyHub. Follow us on social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. That's where we can put everything that we're doing. Obviously, we'll email out to the relevant students the information that we think is useful for you, but we don't want to spam and bombard people with emails. So if you're not studying a current degree which is traditionally linked with children and young people, for example, it's unlikely that we would be bombarding with emails about careers in this area. So those of you studying something a little bit different, you might get emails from the careers team about careers more broadly relevant to your area, or for those employers who are open to students for any particular background, but maybe not quite so many emails about other career paths, because obviously that's not going to be as relevant to most people in that course. So just bear in mind that obviously you can go out there. But a really important message about that, which I perhaps should have said earlier on, it really doesn't matter what you've studied if you want to go into a different career path. Just because you might be studying graphic design, for example, I can see someone on the live call who's got that background, you can go and do anything you want to. If you want to be a graphic designer, fine. If you want to go and be an accountant, fine. If you want to go and work in marketing or want work with children and young people, that's fine as well. Most employers, over 80% of employers, don't mind what you've studied. It's not about your degree title. It's about your attributes, your skills, your character, your experience. That's what helps you get where you want to get to at the end of the day. So don't feel put off by if you're not doing a childhood focused degree. Okay, that's effectively things wrapped up. I'm going to bring the recording to an end now, but I'm going to allow a bit of time, as much as you guys want, for any questions or questions you've got in the meeting chat. So those of you who are watching this back afterwards, I hope this has been useful, and do feel free to get in touch with the team via MyHub, and if that's any use to you. So yeah, just going to hit stop on the recording for a second.